Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess. Welcome to this new video where we'll be talking about the tiebreaks of the World Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana. We know after 12 games without wins, they play the tiebreaks, and we are talking about games of 25 minutes plus 10 seconds per move. And in the first game we have Carlsen playing as white, and he opens the game with the English, and he played the English during the match as well. So here Fabiano plays e5, knight to c3, knight f6. So far well-known theory. White decides to play de fianchetto, and black plays bishop to b4. I remember I was watching this game live, and this moment Carlsen plays e4 immediately. And I think the move is okay. It's not the most natural move in this position. Of course, bishop here is much more popular, and as white we control the d5 square. We remain flexible. We can play with d3 and knight e2. We can play knight f3. But I think Carlsen was playing the psychological game with e4. I mean, maybe he had this prepared beforehand, maybe he didn't, but we know he's even better when he plays rapid or blitz chess. So e4, it's okay. I mean, maybe it's just a transposition. We can play this first and e4 later, but when you're playing a faster time control, it is important to surprise your opponent, and I'm pretty sure Caruana wasn't expecting this move. So after e4 he castles. He can also take, but if he takes, both b takes c3 and d takes c3 are possible. The thing is, black, he's never winning a pawn, because I have queen e2 and I'm likely to get my pawn back. And we know Carlsen, he's pretty good at playing these endgames with a small advantage. As here, as we have the bishop pair, this is a good advantage for white. It is risk-free. And, well, we know how strong Magnus is in this sort of positions. So, yeah, not a good idea to play this against Magnus. This move is much, much better. And again, white plays another weird looking move, because here you expect bishop to g2. But okay, we'll see, there's not a big difference. Once we play this, bishop takes c3 is no longer possible because we retake with the knight, and that means black loses the bishop pair for nothing. He's not breaking our pawn structure. So I actually like the move order used by Magnus in this game. Black plays with c6. He's trying to play d5. Makes a lot of sense. Bishop here, and now he plays with a6. In this position, maybe black has to play something else, but it is tough to decide when you're playing a rapid game. You cannot play deep moves. I mean, maybe you can, but at some point you have to start playing fast. And we know d5 is not even possible here, because white, he simply wins a pawn. Black, he might have some compensation, but the truth is white keeps the extra pawn, he can castle, and eventually he'll play d4. So d5 is not enough here. a6, well, he's trying to play b5, but maybe a simple move like d6 is good as well. The thing is, once you play with c6, it's like, I don't like a move like bishop c5. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. Maybe if you play bishop c5 here, I mean black, you forget about taking on c3, and after this, maybe you can play knight c6 and jump to d4. This makes sense, but once you play with c6, it's like you have to play another plan. Either a quick d5 or what black played, a6 and b5. But now you cannot play bishop c5 trying to play this. So this is what playing a subline can do for you. You avoid theory, you make your opponent think more in the opening. So I think Magnus' opening choice was very good for this game, because as we'll see, he got an awesome position out of the opening. After a6, here white castles, black plays with b5, and here white, he just plays d4. He doesn't even mind protecting the pawn on c4. And we don't take on b5, because if we do, then, well, black, he can take both ways, but I think taking with the a-pawn offers him very, very good chances on the queen side. So d4, power chess by Magnus, and if he takes on c4, he's not achieving much. In fact, his bishop on c8 is still inside, and we are likely to get that pawn back even if he takes on c4. So here black decides to play d6. I like it. That position reminds me a bit of not a King's Indian, but an old Indian defense. I mean, if he takes on d4, knight takes, this is, I mean, after this, we have a very powerful attack as white. Knight d5 is not possible. We have knight e4, bishop g5, knight f5. It's like every single piece is entering black's position. So, yeah. This move is wiser by black. And Magnus plays a3. Of course, a lot of improvements or other moves can be played, but remember, we are talking about a 25 plus 10 seconds move game. So, knight takes c3. I think, as I was saying, Magnus' opening choice was perfect, because here he's got the bishop pair, he's got a healthy pawn structure, and black decides to take. D takes e5, D takes e5, and here knight to a4. Black is up a pawn, but his position, as we were saying, is, I mean, maybe according to the ancients this is not worse for black, but we know in practice this is a terrible pawn structure, and if as white, if we get the pawn back, then we simply have a clear advantage, because we have much better pieces, we have the bishop pair. So I like what Magnus played. I think bishop e3 is more accurate, but yeah, I'm saying this with the help of a computer. What Magnus played seems more direct, because we attack c5, b6, and of course we are delighted to trade queens off in this position. I mean, this position talks for itself. Bishop pair, all we have to do is get the pawn back. So black, in the meantime, he tries getting his pieces out, but what I like about this position is that even if he uses the b file, he cannot do much. He cannot attack the knight on a4, he cannot attack the pawn on b2. So here white plays f3, another nice move. We stop all the tricks, and then we prepare rook c1 and bishop f1. We need to improve our bishop if we want to win. So basically, here we have a couple of extra moves. We won't analyze everything because it would take a lot of time, and I want to show you the highlights of this game. We see black, he's been activating his pieces, he still has an extra pawn, so the game, I mean, white's better, but the game is more or less equal in chances. So far, no huge mistakes by black or white. So rook d1. Yeah, I gotta tell, in a rapid game, this is much better for white. It is easier to play. So knight to b5. And here white plays knight to c5. I think, as you can probably tell, knight b5 wasn't precise, because here we have a lot of tactics with this move, knight c5. The passive knight b7 was better, and the reason is obvious. We stopped knight c5 as black. But okay, it is tough to play a passive move like that in rapid chess, so knight b5 is what Caruana played, and it is tough to blame him for playing it. It is an active option, so knight c5. Now he cannot take in view of rook takes d8, so he takes. And here we have a forced sequence where white gets a better, much better endgame. Bishop takes c4, and now knight to d4. King f7 was also possible, but here the big issue is we can take, and then we play this move. And believe it or not, there's nothing black can do to avoid material losses. He has to play king e8, but it is fair to say that position is lost for him. We take, king takes, rook d6, and it's game over. So after bishop takes c4, he plays the right move, knight d4. He has to close the d file in order to stop this. Here he also attacks on f3, so we have to play this move. Pawn takes. Here rook takes d4 is interesting, but bishop takes e6, check, looks even better. King f8, rook takes d4, and king e7. As I was saying, this is more or less forced, and white has an extra pawn. And here he takes on d7. Yeah, we have to go for these changes, because if we play something like this, I bet he has more than enough counterplay to hold this position. And yeah, I don't want to say black's better, that's maybe too much, but you can tell I cannot move my pieces and his knight is super strong. Not to mention his c6 pawn is still alive. So yeah, Magnus here played the best move on board, best move in practice as well. You play the endgame with an extra pawn, and as usually happens in rook endgames, apart from material, what really matters is rook's activity. So f4, trying to play f5, e5. I mean, we have to advance those pawns, and it would be ideal for white to activate his king, but that is tough to do because that rook on b2 is very powerful. So despite being down a pawn, we can tell Caruana has high drawing chances. So here we have a couple of moves, and as I was saying, it would take a long time to analyze this endgame correctly, and during a rapid game it is tough to play for both sides to play precise moves. So all I can say here is that black has high drawing chances, as I was saying, because of his rook. That rook on c2 is doing everything, cutting my king off, supporting his pass pawn, and his king on f6 is very active as well. So we'll see here. Okay, black plays rook to c3, attacking the g3 pawn, attacking on a3, king here. White, he's happy to give the a3 pawn, but at least his king is a bit more active. Black plays this, rook to c7, and here we have the key moment from this game. Black took on e4, and unfortunately for him, this move is losing, and he had another move which is drawing the game. Rook a2 was a draw, and king takes e4 is losing. But let's see why. King takes e4. It looks like a draw, because after rook takes, well, if king takes, then rook check, and white is likely to win this. He's got two connected pass pawns. But what Caruana saw, maybe, I cannot tell, but I imagine he saw rook takes, And here, instead of king takes f5, rook a2. This in-between move is key because once I move my king, then I can play something like rook a1. I'm attacking this pawn, and if I play f6, I have king here. Surprisingly, black doesn't get the pawn back, but he's got this mating threat. And after this, check. If this, we have a draw. If I go to the first rank, rook a1. So there's nothing white can do to avoid this variation. So at first glance, it looks like king takes e4 is a draw, because after rook takes pawn, then instead of king takes f5, this move seems more than enough to draw the game with king f3 or rook a1 and king f3. So the problem was that after king takes e4, white played an in-between move. He didn't take the pawn, he played rook e7 check. And now the problem is the king cannot reach the f3 square. After this move, rook takes, and now even if black plays this, I play king h3, and there's nothing he can do to stop rook g5 and rook takes h5. So this game is over. So maybe this was the key moment of the tiebreaks where Magnus won the match. Of course we have some the remaining games, but once he plays rook e7, this is that position where white wins. If he took the pawn on g7, it was a draw, with rook check and rook a1 and king f3. So decisive moment, and the thing is, after rook c7, king takes e4 is the mistake because of rook e7. That is what happened in the game. If black played rook a2, it is a draw, because after this we have check. White, well, he has to come back here. We keep on checking. And after king h3, now I take on e4. The difference is the f3 square is not under control. So if he plays this, I play king f3, and then rook a1. And we have this perpetual, king h2, rook a2. So here, yeah, that is the key, right? The f3 square is available. So rook e7, king f3, and if rook takes pawn, well, I can still play, I can play rook a1. I attack the pawn on f5. White has to protect this pawn or advance, and then king f3. And we get this weird position where black just draws. The mating threat, rook a2, king here, rook a1, and that's it. So what happened in the game is that in this position, in this position, Caruana took on e4 first, and this rook e7 was decisive. We have other moves. White eventually took the h5 pawn. This looks tough, but it is very simple. All we have to do is advance our pawns. We can also hide our king behind the g pawn, thus stopping the checks, and the rook and the pawn, they are both useless. So yeah, you can check how this game ended. I'll just show the remaining moves. We see this a2 by black, no checks because our king is covered, but yeah, this endgame is an easy win for white, and after king h5, black resigns. First game of the tiebreak, a win for Magnus, and I mean, this changes the rest of the tiebreaks a lot, because next game Caruana had to play for a win as white, and we'll see what happened. He played e4, and Magnus plays c5. He played c5 during the entire match, but I thought at this point, I mean, he's up a game already, so I thought he was playing e5, because we know this is very solid. He can play the Berlin Wall, the Spanish, he can play so many solid things with e5, and he hasn't played this move during the match, so I thought it was a good moment to play it. And of course, he's been playing e5 for, almost his entire career. Sicilian, on the other hand, he doesn't play Sicilian much. So I was surprised he used that Sicilian even for this tiebreak game. So knight f3, and here Magnus played knight c6. Same as the classical games, he was going for the Sveshnikov. So Fabi played d4. In the first games of the match, he played the Lemo with bishop b5, but it looks like he wasn't happy with the positions he was getting, so later in the match he started to play d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, e5. We've seen the Sveshnikov on this match during the classical portion, knight d5, db5, knight db5, d6, and knight to d5. Well, for those Sveshnikov fans, you know this is the main move by white, but knight d5 is very interesting as well. Of course, we have this threat, and we force black to take on d5, pawn takes, knight to e7, and here white plays c4. This variation is very interesting. Here black plays this move. I have to say that a6, which is very natural, this move loses on the spot in view of queen a4. If he takes my knight, then I take his rook on a8, and the problem is there's nothing black can do to stop that discovered check. Knight c7, knight takes d6. We are even talking about checkmates. If bishop d7, this is a checkmate. If he plays, well, queen d7, here both knight c7 check or knight takes d6, they are both winning. The queen is under a pin, so this is well known for Magnus, of course, but this variation is a bit tricky. a6, such a natural move, losing to queen a4. I mean, you don't see that every day at move 9 in a solid opening like the Sveshnikov, so it is good to know this variation as white. Black plays this move. Now queen a4, which was played, by the way, runs into bishop d7, but here the main difference is the d6 pawn is protected. Queen b4, queen to b8, protecting the d6 pawn, and here white starts playing on both sides of the board. I like this approach. Black plays h5, and now bishop to e3. It looks like white is better, but that position and the structure is not balanced. Black, he's got more pawns on the king side, whereas white, he's got more pawns in the center, and possibly I can play c5 one day. So that position is ideal for Caruana because he needs to win to tie the match. And also regarding this knight, I think white at some point he can put the pawn on g3, and we are somehow controlling this knight on g6. And this is actually what happened in the last game of the classical portion. White played g3, f3, and somehow that knight was under control. So okay, here black played a6, knight to c3, a5. Carlsen was playing very aggressive, and I like this approach because despite having an extra point in the match, he's playing that position and not the score on the match. And this a5, a4 was very aggressive. I like it. Bishop e7, white plays this move, protecting the pawn on h4, and queen to c8. I bet this was still part of Magnus' home preparation, because queen c8, I mean, these moves are not easy to play, and it's even more difficult to play it fast. So I bet this was part of his preparation. c4 is under attack, maybe bishop g4 is coming, so yeah, bishop e2, and now bishop g4. Now we understand why he played queen c8. Otherwise, h5 is defendless. So bishop here, and rook to c1. Bishop takes, queen takes, and here queen f5. Black, he would be delighted to castle, but of course h5 is hanging, so he plays queen f5. And here possibly the key moment of this game, where if it is a classical game with a lot of time to think, maybe Caruana plays something else, but here he didn't have a lot of time to think. He had to risk at this point, and he played c5. And I think this move, it's okay for the situation, and it's like a now or never, because if you play c5 here, his king is still in the center. As white, if you castle, first of all, he can castle, and his king goes to safety, and second, you have to consider some sacrifices as black. Bishop takes h4, then he takes with the knight. I don't think it's working, but in practice we know how tough it is to defend, so especially with no time on the clock. So the aggressive approach, I think, it is the right one. Here Magnus castles. He doesn't even want to see what happens after pawn takes, and I think that's right. I mean, that is a right decision not to take on c5. Here I can take, I can play queen b5, and he has to play with the king in the center, so that's not a good idea. Castling is better, and here white plays c6. It looks like this passer is gonna give white a lot of chances, but it turns out that black is very solid and that c6 pawn is at risk. The main issue for white here is my king is in the center and I haven't completed my development yet. So here queen c4, maybe knight to d5 was white's main idea, but I was watching this game live. I saw this move, and then before rook fc8 was played, I was thinking about this, but then queen e4. And unfortunately for me, bishop e7 is not hanging, and as you can see, white is losing the c6 pawn. So if we lose the c6 pawn, it's like we lose all the initiative we have. So white plays queen c4. Very smart move by Carlsen, bishop to d8. And here in this tough position, Caruana played knight to d5, which is actually a mistake. This is what Magnus was hoping for when he played bishop d8. That is why he removed the bishop from e7. Here, after knight d5, black plays e4, and suddenly the knight is entering via e5 with a crushing attack. That position remains complex. The move was bishop to d4. As white, we have to stop knight e5 at any cost, but Caruana played c7, and this move loses to bishop takes c7. There's no knight e7 check, nothing for white, and after knight takes c7, knight e5. And as I was saying, the problem for white is we have the king on e1, and there's nothing we can do to stop the attack. In this crazy looking position, white played knight to d5, which is quite unexpected, but if we play something else, imagine we play queen c2, well then knight d3 check, then I take on c1, and eventually this knight on c7 is gonna fall. Not to mention we have to play with the king in a bad square. So basically knight d5, it is a good try, because if he takes on c4, I have knight e7 check, and at the end of the day my rook on c1 is protected, so this is better for white. I still have an extra piece. So Carlsen didn't go for this. After knight e5, knight to d5, he played a very smart move in this position where everything is hanging and the only trick white has is knight e7, he plays king h7, and here white resigns. Rook c8 is well protected, knight d3 check is coming, his queen is still hanging, knight d5 is hanging in a lot of variations after knight f3 or knight d3. So here Caruana resigns. So Magnus is up 2 games and 2 remaining games after this. All he has to do is draw to be the world champion, to keep his title. So let's see what happened in this game. Magnus as white is only needs a draw, and Caruana is in a must-win situation to keep fighting on tiebreaks. So Magnus plays e4. In this must-win situation, Caruana plays the Sicilian. He's not playing the Petrov. So knight to f3, and now e6. The Paulsen, this is a very good defense if you are looking for some action, if you want to avoid drawish variations. And here, instead of d4, Magnus plays c4. The move, of course, is playable, it's very good, but it is a bit surprising that he's not going for d4. I remember when Magnus was playing the tiebreaks against Karyakin, and he also was in a... Karyakin was in a must-win situation, and Carlsen only needed a draw. And I remember Magnus was also going for a Maroczy setup, and here he's doing the same. So we can tell he trusts this Maroczy bind for, you know, situations where he needs a draw, where he doesn't, a not lose situation, and he wins. So yeah, Caruana plays knight c6, d4, takes, and bishop c5. Here, this is not the main move. Knight f6 is, of course, the main move, and after knight c3, bishop b4. You can find a lot of games with this line on the database, but I guess Magnus knew a lot of ways of getting an equal position as white. So what Caruana is doing here, he's trying to play something unpredictable, unexpected, and that's a good thing, because you're playing black against Carlsen and you're looking for some action. You need to take some risks, otherwise you're gonna get an equal position out of the opening. So after bishop c5, Magnus decides to play the solid knight c2. Knight b3 was another option, and this has to be the better move according to theory, attacking the bishop, and then we continue in our Maroczy setup. If bishop b6, I can even consider playing c5 at one point, but okay, Magnus decides to take it easy, play knight c2, bishop e3, and get a super solid position. If queen b6, which is probably the most critical move, white can play the safe queen d2 or queen e2, and then we keep on getting our pieces out. So black decides to play knight f6, knight c3, castles, bishop e3, and b6. Yeah, black is trying his best not to play an equal position. In other circumstances, black can just take on e3. He can try going for a quick d5, and that position is just equal. Considering he traded my dark squares bishop off, he can also try playing d6, e5, and exploiting dark squares weaknesses. But that position remains very equal. Or even white, maybe white is better. Queen d2, bishop e2, rook d1. What I'm saying is, Caruana, if he wanted to play for a win as black, and he's playing this super safe position for white, he's not gonna have chances. So he plays b6 because he wants to keep some tension in this game. But Magnus keeps on playing solid moves. Queen e7, queen d2, pretty straightforward moves by white. Now we place our rooks, possibly on d1 and c1. So we see Caruana doing his best as black to create some action, but this is dangerous as well. This can easily backfire. As you can see, white, instead of playing the solid f3, goes for more with f4 and possibly e5. And yeah, that position for black, it is tough to play for a win, as I was saying, especially against Magnus. This position, after rook d2, rook d1 is coming. Black is the only one with weaknesses, and we have kingside under control. There's not much black can do with his knights there, and as white they have more space. So here he plays a6. This was another key moment in the game where black, I mean, if he wants to free his position, it has to be now, playing d5. Takes. I can take as white as well, because my queen is protected, believe it or not. And okay, this endgame, I mean, it is almost impossible for black to win this. And remember, yeah, we are talking about Magnus playing white. If someone wins, it is white here, because black is the only one with weaknesses. So, I mean, from a theory point of view, d5 is the right move. Black, he more or less equalizes, but if he plays d5, he can also forget about winning this game, and that's exactly what he needed. So he played a6, rook here, and now white is in control. Yeah, we'll see the rest of the game. I'll jump in, you know, the main position. We see some maneuvers. We see white improving his position little by little, but there's nothing black can do to... There are no breaks. I mean, if he goes crazy on the king side, we are winning there. a5, that would be a huge mistake in view of knight b5. We have d5 under control. And if he plays e5 himself, well, we can play f5, or we can consider taking maybe. The d5 square also is a weakness. So Magnus, despite having everything under control, goes for it all, and he starts attacking on the king side. And this is what I like about Magnus. I mean, his style during the tiebreaks, he knew he only needed a draw, but he played that positions. He wasn't playing the score. Previous game is black. He also took aggressive approaches, even when he was ahead, when he was a point up in the match. So I think he played very good during tiebreaks. And after queen a5, yeah, knight a4. Again, as white, we are under control. There's nothing black can do. He is overloaded, protecting d6 and c5. Even moves like e5 are coming. And it is tough as black, because he's the one supposed to be playing for a win. But, I mean, white here, he has a much better position. e5. Maybe this wasn't required, but Magnus, he was happy by trading a lot of pieces off. And that's what he did here. Knight takes c5, attacking rook d7 and bishop b7. Rook takes. We see a lot of trades here, and now bishop to a8. Yeah, this move is a must too, because if he takes, well, maybe he didn't want to play this position with this pin. I mean, and as we'll see in the game, white gets two passers on the queen side. So bishop a8, it looks like black gets more potential winning chances with this move, but white simply takes on e5. Of course, it's never late to make a huge mistake like this and lose a piece, but Magnus was in the zone. Yeah, he wasn't making any mistakes really. And after pawn takes, we have more trades. Queen takes e5. Yeah, more or less only move. If this Well, this has an idea if bishop takes a8, queen takes c5, but knight takes e6, and then white is much better. Extra pawn, no weaknesses, we have that powerful bishop, and after queen a7, queen e3. And again, black, there's nothing he can do to get his pawn back. He takes the bishop, we take the knight. So queen takes e5, and another crushing move by white. And I say crushing not because it's winning, but because it is trading everything off. And basically with the draw, Magnus was winning. So knight d7, now queen b2. Black is doing his best not to trade pieces off, but after this, the funny part is there are no checks for black. No queen e1, no queen a1, and I have this threat. Queen c8 or queen e8 are also threats, and yeah, it is impossible for black to keep winning chances here. Best he can get is a perpetual. So knight d7, very powerful move. Queen b2, and here another powerful move by Magnus, queen d6. And I say powerful from the drawish perspective, because here, well, if he takes, then we take, and we keep all those trades coming. And the thing with queen d6 is, if he takes, then I have queen f8, king h7, I can take, and then I have a draw by repetition. And maybe I have more than this, but at least I have queen f8, queen f7, and that means Magnus is the world champion. So after queen d6, well, this is a huge threat, so black has to take. Queen takes d7, queen takes c2, and this endgame, queen takes a8, it is equal according to the ancients. If black plays queen c1 and queen f4, we have a perpetual there, but of course black was trying to win this, and that knight looks powerful, but truth is white is very solid, and even in this position, pawn takes, queen e3, black, he cannot get more than a draw, because if he advances those pawns too much, his king is way too open, and we have a bishop, so unfortunately for him, he cannot create threats, and in the meantime, our pawns are also advancing. So here he played knight to e6. It looks like he is stopping our queenside pawns, but we have b4. If he takes, then we take on e6. So knight here. I think, yeah, this is a huge mistake, but of course he was trying to force this position one way or the other. Knight f4, this looks like a draw, c5, check this, and black has endless checks. That was not enough for him, because he had to win, obviously. So after b4 he plays this, and the problem is white's pawns, they advance too fast, and white, he's not only playing for a draw, he's now playing for a win. Knight to e6, a4, those pawns are tough to stop. Knight c7, queen f4, knight e6, and in this position queen e3 was good enough for a draw, but Magnus played queen d6, and now we have checks under control. This diagonal is under control, so king h2 is just fine, and not enough resources for black to draw this anymore. He can play, if knight e2, I play queen c5, I make sure I stop the mate, I stop the check on e5, and I promote next. f5 is also hanging. So yeah, after c7 we have queen c3 by Fabi, queen c5, queen e3. We have a second queen on board, no checks for black. I mean, queen f2 is what he can try, but even after queen f2, I can just play, well, even queen d5, stopping the check on f3. I probably have more than just one winning move here, but black played f4, which is a reasonable try as well. And here, this move ends the story. No more checks. And yeah, black has no moves, basically. He's in some sort of 6-1. But even if we want to be safe as white, I can just give the queen back. And after this, the bishop is deciding the issue here. Or worst case scenario, I can draw. But of course, Magnus was winning this with 2 queens. It's almost impossible for black to get some counterplay. And after queen g4, we have, I was gonna say a new world champion, but Magnus keeps his world champion title. So, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. It was a long video, I have to say, but I think these 3 games, they deserved careful analysis. And despite being rapid games, as you can see, they have a lot of things to learn. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And of course, I want to see you guys in my next works. Thank you.